Boris Johnson has launched a blistering attack on Theresa May's Chequers plan, calling it a moral and intellectual humiliation for this country that will cheat the electorate if implemented. In an explosive article published ahead of the Conservative Party conference, the former Foreign Secretary urged the Prime Minister to chuck Chequers and adopt a Super Canada-style proposal instead after her proposal was rejected by the EU last week. In a column for the Telegraph entitled "A Better Plan for Brexit," Mr. Johnson says, overall, the Chequers proposals represent the intellectual error of believing that we can be half in, half out, that it is somehow safer and easier for large parts of our national life to remain governed by the EU even though we are no longer in the EU. They are in that sense a democratic disaster. There is nothing safe or pragmatic in being bound by rules over which we have no say, interpreted by a federalist court. The Chequers proposals are the worst of both worlds. They are a moral and intellectual humiliation for this country. It is almost incredible that after 2 years this should be the opening bid of the British government. Mr. Johnson sets out an alternative vision which he says would make Britain rich, strong and free. 039 video. What is the Canada trade model? He calls for a new withdrawal agreement which states that the Irish border question will be settled as part of the deal on the future economic arrangements. He says the implementation period should be used to negotiate and bring into force a Super Canada-type free trade agreement, and says MPs should not vote to hand over £40 billion to the EU without any such agreement. Mr. Johnson says London and Brussels would agree to close cooperation in areas such as defence, security and aviation. This is the time to get it right, he says. What the plan means for sovereignty, immigration and money. This is the approach that allows this country really to exploit the opportunities of Brexit, to diverge and legislate effectively for the new technologies and businesses in which the UK has such a lead. This is an opportunity for the UK to become more dynamic and more successful, and we should not be shy of saying that, and we should recognise that it is exactly this potential our EU partners seek to constrain. But critics of a Canada-style deal, including Prime Minister Theresa May herself, say it would still mean customs checks between Northern Ireland and Ireland, which could threaten the Good Friday Agreement. The EU also has reservations, arguing the integrity of its single market could be harmed if there are not proper checks in place. 027 video. Hunt. Don't underestimate PM. Mr. Johnson's intervention comes 2 days before the start of the Conservative Party conference in Birmingham, where Brexit is expected to feature heavily. His fellow Brexiteers rallied around Mr. Johnson's plan, with Tory MP Bernard Jenkin describing it as unanswerable and powerful. Nadine Dorries, also a Conservative MP, called Mr. Johnson a man with a plan, and Jacob Rees-Mogg, who chairs the powerful Eurosceptic European Research Group, agreed that the negotiations had been badly conducted, as he likened the Chequers plan to Count Dracula, saying it doesn't have much life in the sunlight. Not all were impressed though, with former Tory cabinet minister Nicky Morgan mocking Mr. Johnson. She tweeted, "I said Boris had to decide if he was a politician or a journalist. He's clearly made his decision, but shame he didn't research the link between agreeing a solution that keeps the Irish border frictionless and the chances of agreeing withdrawal terms. Or does he just not care?" 125 video. Entrepreneur Sir Richard Branson says Brexit is a shadow. Cabinet Office Minister John Trickett said Mr. Johnson's plan revealed the Tories only had internal warfare left. Referring to Mr. Johnson's column, Labour MP David Lammy tweeted, "Just when I had run out of bog roll, Lib Dem MP Layla Moran said Mr. Johnson's comments were nothing more than a half-baked sloppy rant." Sir Richard Branson called the plan a disaster for the UK and Europe. The billionaire Virgin boss told Sky News, "I do personally think that entrepreneurs and business people know what this country needs more than Boris Johnson knows." He also backed a second referendum, as it is quite likely that sense will finally prevail.